Hello and welcome to Making It Manufacturing Spotlight Series. We are here in New York, live at the DCAT conference in the brilliant Lottie Hotel. I'm joined today by Ian Glassford, the VP at Abzena. How are you, Ian?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, Ian. Ian, for our listeners, before we get deep into the podcast, can you give an understanding of where Abzena fits in the CDMO landscape today?
Yeah, Abzena is an integrated CDMO that really specializes in bioconjugates, especially around antibody drug conjugates, as well as antibody oligo conjugates, as well as many others. We have 3 sites, one in Cambridge, UK, which is really the discovery engine.
Yeah.
They do a lot of cell line development, protein engineering, bioconjugation, bioassay, a lot of analytics. We have our site in San Diego, California, that focuses on development and manufacture of recombinant proteins, really specializing in antibodies and new modalities in the antibody space. And in our site in Bristol, Pennsylvania, which is just outside of Philadelphia, with a focus on bioconjugation. So we do a lot of linker payload, high potent chemistry. These are the molecules that get attached to the antibodies.
Yeah.
And then we do the bioconjugation itself, and we do all of your development needs as well as GMP manufacture to support clinical trials through late phase.
So there's a lot of excitement at the moment in ADCs and bioconjugates. From an execution standpoint then, where do things tend to get slightly more difficult?
Yeah, I think the most challenging thing is, just like any type of product out there, once you have people that know how to do it, it's easy. I think the most challenging thing in the bioconjugation space around ADCs and AOCs is the complexity. You have a protein piece, you've got a small molecule or something you're conjugating it to. And the technologies are moving very, very fast. When I started in this part of the industry about 10 years ago, people were mostly using monoclonal antibodies and coupling, a handful of chemotherapy small molecules to them. Today, we're doing bispecifics, Fc fusion proteins, we're conjugating oligos and peptides and degraders and all types of other molecules. So it really changes the profile of how the process works, and especially changes the profile of how the analytics work. So being able to adapt to the changes is really necessary. And while we try to do it the best we can, it makes standardizing things challenging, but that's the fun in it.
Yeah, amazing. So when clients come to you with complex programs, what are they really looking for just beyond the kind of technical capability? What else are they looking for?
Yeah, they need integration and they need a partnership, right?
Yeah.
So I think our model is to work with the clients as a team, as one partner that we're trying to build, develop and manufacture a product together, instead of it being a transactionary relationship where we're just, being asked to provide a service for them. This is the kind of things that help the clients meet, the more challenging timelines. It helps to solve problems much quicker, and it helps, get the medicine to the patients faster.
Yeah. And then just on that, you're trying to get the medicine to the patients as quick as possible, but you're also trying to have that promise of being able to deliver and execute what you promised. How are you finding that balance in speed to market and execution?
Yeah, you're right. Timelines they always have been a big thing, timeline and cost, but timelines are getting more and more competitive. Everyone wants to get to INDs faster. Investors want to see results quicker. And I think the way to get there is a combination of standardization of what you do to develop the product and get it into manufacture, but maintaining flexibility so that you can, solve problems and deal with challenges that are unique to the molecule itself. The next thing there, I think, is really communication, high levels of communication. As I mentioned, working as partners with your clients versus just as, a service provider. Really making sure that you focus communications quickly. You can escalate issues very fast and have mechanisms to do that. And then building in quality right through your process development. So everybody's kind of focused on the next step. Your discovery groups are focused on what your process development teams need. Your process development teams are focused on what your manufacturing teams need. Manufacturing teams are focused on what the quality group's going to say. If you do that, it helps you maintain those quick timelines, maintaining the quality, and you can get these products to market and to patients faster.
I'm just having a look at one of your phrases. So, Abzena, fully integrated CDMO and CRO support every step of the way.
Yeah.
Could you just give us a little insight into how Abzena go about that?
Yeah, so when Abzena started, the idea was really to integrate all of the things that go into an antibody drug conjugate.
Yeah.
And unlike, standard small molecule therapies or standalone biologics therapies, there's a lot of different components. So you have for an ADC, you have the linker payload, which is usually cytotoxic, but not necessarily has to be cytotoxic chemotherapy. And then there's the protein side, most likely an antibody. Those have to be made separately, and then they have to come together to conjugate to form the ADC. So the goal of Abzena was to integrate that and control the supply chain of all those different parts to make to make it easier, to make the timelines quicker, and to have more control and quality over that.
And ultimately, how important is that for your customers?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important. Integration, I can start with some people think they can manage their supply chains more effectively with giant supply chain teams, and you can manage a group in Europe, a group in North America, a group in Asia. But it really does become challenging to do that, to maintain the timelines that people want today to get that speed to ID. And any breakdown in that supply chain, any breakdown in the flexibility, or just any breakdown in the values or how those different groups operate, really can cause big delays in the timeline. So for us, not only acting as a partner, but controlling the whole landscape from the beginning to the end, really allows us to guarantee that we can get their product to the clinic, to commercial faster with the right amount of speed and quality.
It is a competitive market at the moment, and you were talking about the partnerships, and the demand of speed is getting a lot more vast. How do you manage those relationships in order to be able to, yes, complete it for when it's needed, but also be realistic about the timeline and the execution?
It always goes back to the communication, and having that spirit of partnership. Everything, when things are going smooth, like, everyone's happy. When things aren't going smooth, you need to find a way to communicate and make that part smooth as well. So I think, again, it all goes back to that partnership. I could say, out of all the dozens and dozens of projects that I personally experienced and run as part of Abzena, those relationships that we managed as true partnerships allowed us to get through all those hiccups and all those problem solving stages of the project that we need to much quicker, much more efficiently, and ultimately forms a better relationships that we can continue into the future.
Brilliant. Ian, that was an absolute pleasure hearing about Abzena. I'm just going to dive a little bit into yourself and the genius behind it. So you started out your career in medicinal chemistry. So what pulled you into the world of complex biologics and bioconjugates as well?
Yeah, I wish there was a really fantastic story about this, but really, sum it up as just one word: serendipity.
Okay.
So, I did my PhD in organic chemistry, did a lot of total synthesis of new and novel antibiotics, and then moved on to GSK into medicinal chemistry. My time when doing that, my plan was, I'll move through the ranks in med chem, discovering drugs, synthesizing molecules, and maybe I'll lead my own group one day. That wasn't in the cards. GSK was going through their own financial rough times. And so I applied for a job at Abzena as a synthetic chemist, not really knowing what an ADC was or what bioconjugation was at the time. They hired me to do chemistry, which I learned was to make these linker payloads that attach to the ADCs. And naturally, my skills as an organic chemist coupled very well to that. So just like small molecules, we had to, connect things together to make bigger molecules. Now it was doing the same thing, but attaching things to proteins. So while some of the chemistry seemed simpler, the product was much more complex, which really intrigued me, going into all the different analytics that you had to know to really characterize the protein and the protein conjugates. So it really was a happy accident that I got into the field, but something that I would choose again if I had the opportunity.
So you've moved from hands-on science into leading a site. It's quite a big shift. What changed most for when you made that transition from both parts?
Yeah, coming up, as a scientist, it's all about, figuring things out and solving the problem yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really what you look for when you're hiring scientists, people that can actively think outside the box, troubleshoot, and solve problems. Moving into leadership roles, you find out really quick that it's not the same to just solve the problem, but now you've got to look at it from a bigger picture. So the switch from, solving the problems myself to trying to figure out what are the types of problems that we routinely have and build systems that could prevent them from happening or allow the communication across the organization so we can solve them quicker.
So say we were having this conversation in 5 years' time and we're sat here with this beautiful view. Where do you feel Abzena are going to on their next level?
Yeah, Abzena's been, historically growing and expanding what we offer. As I said, they started out with antibody drug conjugates in the discovery phase, doing a lot of research work to discover new compounds. We slowly expanded into process development to scale these processes up, provide robust and consistent ways to make them. And then we moved into GMP manufacturing, where for the last 6 or 7 years, we've been supporting our clients by getting them to their IND filings and supporting their phase 2 trials. Just last year, at the beginning of last year, we ran our first phase 3 batch for our client, which was really important. And we're going to continue to expand over the, in 5 years' time. We're going to be working across all different types of modalities within conjugation. And our plan is to, start to help our clients that we've worked from day one to get to a commercial manufacturing and launch their products for the rest of the world. And that's where I really see Abzena being in the next 5 years.
And from that then, do you feel then the success is made from being able to adapt into certain areas as market trends change? And you feel like Abzena potentially has that in order to be able to go to that next level and the success in the next 5 years?
No, absolutely. I think the standard model of the CDMO a bit too rigid. Coming in, asking for what the client comes in and asks for what they need, and you kind of give them we can do this way and only this way. This is how we like to do it. I think we've adapted from that, especially having to do that with all the different types of modalities of bioconjugates that are coming through. So we've also adapted and become very flexible to how we handle what the market trends are coming in, really understanding the type of molecules we're working with, how they interact, how they behave, and how the things that we already know how to do well can translate into other products.
Amazing. Ian, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate the talk, and thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.